If you were to have scales, not only what color would they be, but what material would you want them made out of?
I'm sorry. Is there an option besides scale?
Scale.
No. Well, yes. Sorry. Yes, there is. Like they like I would want scales made of metal. Like and like I was thinking of like some of the other like Naga types. They have like spirits. So would they be like ethereal? Or like the bone Naga would be like, like they don't have scales, but they're made of bones. So would you at some point want to have scales made of bones? If you could have scales made of anything, what would you have them made of?
Okay.
Smooth and shiny seashells that would be like
Oh,
opalescent, and every time that I moved, I would glimmer.
that's so cute.
Yep. Because I's a fancy bitch.
I feel like that would have been a Pep's answer. Like,
Yeah.
seashell, like
I was thinking like glitter, but
that's fair. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I had scales right now, my hair is green and blue. But my go-to colors are purple and blue, like just in life. So I think like it would be just like shiny
Is
purple
that
and
why
blue.
that fairy dragon you painted us is purple and blue?
It's a bronze dragon or a brass dragon, not
Oh, I
a
thought you
fairy
gave
dragon.
us.
No,
I
I
thought
gave you a brass dragon, and it is purple and blue because that's me.
it is okay. Yeah, it's brass dragon.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah.
I
Because
also
I,
I was
because
just
I
starting
am
the
a brass
dragon minis,
dragon.
and we have the fairy
The
dragon.
fairy dragon. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I am a brass dragon, so that is me.
Okay. I mean, total sidebar, Megan. What dragon are you?
What dragon am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a black dragon.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You say it out loud, and I say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. See, I love black dragons the most, but I am a brass dragon. Like I love the chromatics, but I know that I am a brass dragon like through and through.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't read enough to be one of the intelligent ones. So
It's the collecting of like sentient items so they have someone to talk to. Like that's why I have an Instagram, is so I always have somebody to talk to.
I love that you just called your Instagram followers sentient items.
it makes the most sense, actually. Yeah.
I mean, when I post, I'm like, "Good morning, my dragons."
Adorable.
Yeah, I just collect friends. That's what I. All right, but Megan, what color is your scales? Getting back on the actual question.
The original question. If I was to have scales, one, I would want them made of metal because I would want to be able to just crush a being. And then I like the sound of like what the chain link makes. I like that sound. So I think that I would really enjoy that a lot. And if they were to have them, they would be orange, and they would be like orange and gold. Like orange is, I don't know if you know this about her, but orange might be one of her favorite colors.
Did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, as the internet can't see, she just picked up an orange mug
and an orange flavored energy drink.
Took a sip out of it.
It is wild to me that I know like over half of the people on the podcast what their favorite colors are, and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's such a weird question, but it's so much fun.
Welcome to the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get.
Welcome back to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. Today, we're continuing our discussion on Monstrosities and Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I'm Pepperina, and with me today are Megan and Adam, and this episode is called Nagas, Snake, Rattle, and Roll for Initiative.
In this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, this panel of Dungeon Masters will slither up to some of the most iconic enemies in Dungeons and Dragons, the snake-like spellcasters known as Nagas.
Before we get into it, are you guys cool with snakes, or is there a tension or fear when you are around real snakes?
All right, do we want to roll for it?
Yeah, let's roll for it.
1.
12.
11. Megan?
I have no problem with snakes. In the sense where they don't scare me to look at them, they don't scare me to touch them, they don't scare me to hold them and pick them up. However, if I saw one in the wild, like going full tilt towards me, I would probably run out of the way. You know what I mean? Like if I was to be attacked by one, absolutely I would be frightened by it. But my mom, however, has like this intense fear of snakes. even if she like sees something on the ground that could potentially resemble a snake-like shape, she'll be like hard pass, and like she's in the other room. Like she just every snake like so. It's been a long running joke in our family that my mom is afraid of snakes to the point of like self-detriment. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that trend from like 4 or 5 years ago where people were putting a cucumber on the ground beside a cat? The cat
Yeah.
would like notice it and freak out. You should do that to your mom. Just put a cucumber on the floor and have her turn around and jump.
She probably would, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I'm cool with snakes. I don't give a shit. I mean, I'm very scared of the toxic venom that they've got. I don't want any part of that nonsense. But no, if they're non-venomous, they're all right. I'm one of those guys that, like, I'm not a snake guy. I have pet geckos, but I'm not a snake guy. However, I've been to, like, I think they did it at Disneyland, but I've been to places where there's that guy with the snake teaching you about animals, and he just like drapes it over your shoulders, and I'm cool with it. And half the audience scatters, and I'm always like, why? They're just little noodle guys. Even the big ones they're just cuddly.
Yeah. So I actually have a pet snake.
Oh,
It's a ball python that is a banana pastel morph. We got him a year ago for my daughter's birthday, and his name is Banana Bread.
of course it is.
I love it.
So you can't be afraid of a snake called Banana Bread, right? Like
That's what he wants you to think.
he's a good boy. He's only bit me once because he was very hungry, and I was trying to like move things so I could feed him. But like he's pretty chill. He watched like the Ed Sheeran documentary with me. Like you just hold him in your hand and he like watches
How big
stuff
is he?
with you. He's not terribly big. We got him as a baby, so we've had him for about a year. I used to have 2 other snakes in my house also. One of them was a bit bigger, so like you said, Adam, like you could wrap them around your shoulders and stuff, so I've done that. But yeah, like Megan said, if I saw one in the wild, I would definitely like veer the other way. Like
Yeah.
domestic snakes or pets is
Yeah.
one thing. I know Banana Bread. I know like when he's hungry and when like what his moods are, and he's cool. Like he'll wrap around your wrist like a little bracelet when he's not hungry. So
Adorable.
yeah, and you could like sort of cuddle with him and hang out. But there's just like once a week you feed him, and that he knows that day.
You know, between the banana morphs for the pythons and the fact that like I got leopard geckos, and like, why are there not more yellow snakes in D&D? Why are they all green and black?
Yeah, like, and there's not really that many green snakes. Like,
Not unless you're over at like the UNT side of things. Some of them
Yeah.
are coated green, but
yeah,
there should be more like interesting morphs. Listen,
Yeah.
D&D artists, figure it out. Get
look
inspired.
at ball pythons because they have 5 million different morphs to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
off of. Okay, before this conversation gets so large that we'll need to shed our skins, let's cut to a quick info break.
We've previously covered quite a bit in our discussion on monsters in 5th edition. For all of those episodes and more, you can follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and dozens of other podcast apps. If you would like to support us, you can donate through the website, check out our store, or join our Patreon and get access to other episodes and series. If you would like to pay for some ad space on It's a Mimic, or just send a shout out to a friend, please reach out to us through our email and website that are listed in the show notes below.
Hey, before we go any further, I just have a quick favor to ask of everybody. Can you please pause this episode right now? If you are able, jump over to r/itsamimic and leave Dave some happy birthday messages. It's his birthday on June 17th, and I know it's going to make him feel incredibly awkward, so I owe him this attention. This week on It's a Mimic, there are 2 more episodes after this one. The first one, on the public channels, is the next Bring Out Your Undead episode, where the ladies sit down to talk about plagues and infected and how it relates to undead in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So expect to hear about some myconids, expect to hear about some parasites, and expect to hear about a little guy named Caius. And then over on the It's a Mimic Patreon this week, Tyler and I sit down to discuss analysis paralysis in your players. This is right on the heels of us having an episode about dilemmas, but now we're going to sit down and break out what you can do when your players don't know what to do, how to identify and avoid the traps, and how to keep your game moving. But for now, let's get back to the episode.
At first glance, a Naga just looks like a big snake creature, but they are so much more. They were first created by a humanoid race that has long been lost to time, but the Nagas, however, have remained. They were created to be immortal guardians, so when their creators died out, the Nagas took over the treasures and magical lore their masters had left behind. They do tend to stick to their layers or regions of control, but their drive for power will take them into the world to hunt for magical items and spellbooks. As I mentioned, Nagas are immortal. They do not feel the effects of time or sickness, and even if they are struck down, they will simply return in a new body days later. All Nagas have immortal nature, meaning they don't need air, food, drink, or sleep to survive. Whatever domain they deem to be theirs, they will rule it completely, believing itself to be the absolute authority of all other creatures in its territory. There is one other serpentine race you are probably familiar with, the Yuan-ti. The Nagas and Yuan-ti have a long-standing rivalry as each believes it is the superior serpent race. However, on rare occasions, they have been known to pause this rivalry to work together against a common enemy. But that is very rare, and they still do not really see the other as any kind of authority. The book doesn't really give a written description of their appearance other than serpent, but we do get pictures of each kind. Unlike the Yuan-ti, that can have some humanoid features, the Nagas are purely a serpentine body. Their faces, however, do give humanoid, which kind of creeps me out. It's like that manticore that has like the lion body and the human face. I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like when they get human faces.
It's a weird combo. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that is sort of the base lore that we get on Nagas in general in the book. So I've got some questions for you guys.
Okie doke.
All right, let's roll. See who's answering.
16.
4.
9.
All right. Before we jump into the mechanics, how do you feel about the lore surrounding Nagas?
I think it's cool. I feel like it was probably a lot deeper in previous editions. I haven't looked into it, but there's a lot of specificity here without there being paragraphs and paragraphs, right? The whole idea of, the long lost creators of, no, I bet that if we were to dig through some 3.5 or AD&D shit, we would find the answer. Like, who was it and where were they and what happened to them, right? So I like it. I like that they don't get along with the Yuan-ti. That makes me very happy because Yuan-ti are they're pretty iconic at this point for D&D, and it just, I bet that there are a lot of people that haven't read the lore that have a Yuan-ti, I don't know, pyramid with a Naga sitting at the top that rules over all of them. But that's not at all how it is, right? That does a disservice to both of them. So I like that there's a little rivalry there, and I think that's rife for plot points. We always do like goblins versus orcs are fighting in the or kobolds and whatever. Yuan-ti versus Nagas, far more interesting for me. It's like an alien versus predator situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's like a bit of a war going on in the background that's not necessarily like prevalently forward, but like if something was to happen, like it would definitely pop off like a very long drawn out war with these like celestial monstrosities, right? So that's definitely something a DM can play into. And because in 5th edition they kind of cut out a lot of that lore, if you don't want to go hunting for it, you could spice it in your own direction and favor it in your own direction, right? So you can kind of pick what humanoid race at one point decided to make these, and that might be the big MacGuffin story that you have, is trying to figure out where these celestial beings came from, therefore learn how to destroy them, and you can flavor that yourself as a DM, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like their sort of like background war and the thought of like there are rare occasions where they will like fight together, and just like what enemy is big enough that these two would link up. Like it's got to be real bad. Yeah. And I like the idea of like your party having to convince both sides. Like, I know that they're dicks, but we need them right now. And then you go to the other side. Look, I know that they're dicks, but we need them right now.
We say that a lot about men sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey.
You know that
right.
you can't defend it.
Yeah,
Sit
yeah,
down.
yeah. I have no argument here. You're right.
You've listened to our behind the scenes enough, you know.
Yeah.
With the I just have a general question. I like the idea that some are good and some are evil, right?
Mhm.
I'm assuming that the good ones aren't teaming up with the UNT. UNT are neutral evil.
Weirdly enough, because like in my research for mine, they can and would for very specific reasons, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they guard power sometimes
Okay.
to keep it away from the bigger evil. So I feel like some of the good ones would team up with the UNT if there was a bigger evil. It's like my
Okay.
enemy is the friend of the enemy of my enemy is that I don't know what the sentence is.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
like,
The enemy of my enemy is my
it's
friend.
my friend. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like, I think that's the only reason why they would team up if there was something worse.
For the greater good.
Yeah. As we like to say here in D&D 5th edition, the greater good.
All right. Are there any obvious allies or minions you can think of for these guys?
Interestingly, no. I have trouble with these as individual, like as leaders. They're so, because they're guardians and they're not UNT based, and UNT really have dominion over everything snaky, right? That's their whole big deal. Snake, snake, snake. These just, I feel like they happen to be snakes, but they're more guardians. They're like Megan said a minute ago, they almost feel celestial in
Mhm.
some ways, right? Like, I'm surprised that they're monstrosities, but I mean, what else would they be? But like, they feel more important than that, but there's not necessarily low-level celestials or like a cult maybe that's also protecting a power, like the cult from the Mummy,
Mhm.
right? That's led by maybe a Naga that doesn't leave the treasured whatever it is, the magic item or the secret knowledge or whatever, right? The ritual site, and so has minions that go out ranging for them. But like, no, it feels very much like they're going to deal with humanoids and not monsters. You're not going to walk into their temple and necessarily have snakes pouring out of the holes in the walls. That's UNT. That doesn't feel like these guys. And I'm at a bit of a loss. I don't know what to do with them, right? Because when I think snakes and power, I think Egyptian or Aztec, I think pyramids, but again, that's all UNT.
Mhm.
And I don't want to double dip. So I don't know. I feel like they're almost like a golem, right? Where they've been plunked down to guard this one thing, and this is where they live, and this is what they do, right?
Yeah.
Or like a sphinx maybe is a better example than a golem.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I agree in the sense where like a lot of times maybe the areas or the grounds or the magical items they're protecting or whatever they've been sent to guard is isolated, right? So they do end up being that golem-like creature. But like, let's say they ended up being like created and their sacred ground happens to be a temple. Like, I feel like they would exist there like on their own, but it might have like your classic kobolds or other lizard folk that run the temple itself, right? I don't
Lizard
like,
folk is a great answer.
yeah, I think would be a really cool one to add in there. But again, they would be, in my mind, not necessarily working in tandem or with each other. It's just like they know that this thing exists in case the worst happens and our temple gets under attack. You don't open the door unless you have to, kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
Like there's a village of lizard folk at the bottom of the volcano,
Yeah.
and they know that up at the temple, like 2/3 of the way up, there's a temple up there. It's ancient ruins. You don't go there. There's a Naga, right? And maybe they give it offerings sometimes, but that's it.
Yeah.
Are they immortal?
Yeah. Yes.
That's their whole thing.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is that they didn't die out. They were created and then they never died. They just stayed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, they don't require air, food, drink, or sleep.
Yep.
Mhm.
They don't age out. Do they breed? Or is there like a finite number of Naga?
Yeah, I didn't find anything in the lore about like making new ones. They were created by this race, so I would almost make it like there is this finite amount.
There's
Well-
only like for very specific areas and places.
Yeah.
This is your classic Legend of Zelda. There's 5 Nagas you have to kill. Like
Or this is your like, hey, we need to summon a guardian for
Mhm.
whatever reason. Then your plot quest, like your plot book, your quest is we have to summon this guardian, and then you summon a Naga.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as minions and allies go, I would say, like, it says they rule over their like area and their domain. Like they have subjects. They have like their subjects of the area they're in. So that would sort of be their allies or minions. They rule these people. So I would imagine they have some sort of like defense or army with that as well.
It screams cult. It screams
right,
like
I feel like they were created as guardians and then moved on to being ruler when what they were guarding died.
yeah.
Megan, do you remember when we were playing an L5R and we had to go to the what was the city? There was a specific word for it that you used. Like we all showed up at this village, but what was the L5R word for like castle or city or whatever?
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, no, I'm making you switch gears here in the middle of a D&D conversation. Cuden, is that it?
Cuden, yes.
Cuden, okay.
Cuden, yeah.
I feel like a guardian Naga or even a spirit Naga would very much run a Cuden.
Yeah, or be like the spirit guardian of the Mori, which is like whatever forest or forested area is in like or temple space would be as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it would almost be like it lives underneath a Cuden. It would, for sure.
Do you think that they'd be like public figures, like diplomats even? They've got the intelligence and charisma to do it. Like, would they be in hiding or would they rule a city-state?
They don't have the ability to like look, like they don't have polymorph or anything like that. So if you saw one, you're staring into the face of a monstrosity.
Yeah, I know,
So-
but that's my thought is you walk into the throne room expecting to talk to the prince or princess or whatever, and you walk in and there's a snake on a massive throne with a human face looking down at you going, come forward, and nobody else is phased.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I imagine it like wrapped around the throne room, and then like there's this like chair, but there's no backing to it. It just has its head resting on it, and it's just like, oh,
Banana Bread does that with his little like water dish.
that's him running his
head
head
on
on it. Yeah. Running
I'll
his
use it
castle.
as like a little pillow. It's super cute.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we've went over the general lore of them, let's get into some of the more specific types that we have.
Sure.
So we're covering 3 different types. We each have one. Do we want to roll to see who goes first?
Let's do it. 19.
I also rolled a 19.
I got an 11.
And Megan,
I rolled a 10.
oh, I got a 9. Fuck. Which adds up to 19. All right.
How dare you?
I'm gonna hold my action to the end though.
Okay. That sounds
Oh,
fun.
I just listened to one of the episodes. I totally forgot we talked about this where we could hold actions. Can
Yeah.
we dash? Is that a thing? Can we skip people's actions?
I want to go first. Can I?
Said literally no one ever because everyone wants to go second.
Yeah.
That seems to be
Second.
where everybody wants to go.
That's
I like
fair.
going first because then I get my stuff out of the way and I can just like sit back and be creative for the rest of it. Like that's the speed I like to go.
Everybody else feels like they're put on the spot when they have to go first. I'm
Yeah.
very
No.
comfortable.
I'm all right with it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going first. Am I going first?
You're going first.
All right. So speaking of beautiful guardians, I'm going to talk about the Guardian Naga. And it's exactly as we've been talking about. It's right there in the title. They are tasked with guarding the sacred spaces and magical items specifically for falling into the hands of evil. This makes them the wise and good versions of the Nagas. So that also like it again, like it was interesting to see that's like one of the only like one out of the 3 is good, and this is the one that is. And visually, they are considered to try and be like supposed to be very beautiful. So in the art, they're the ones that do come out as green. So they're the green ones with the like the long green scales. The yellow is actually supposed to sometimes be like a line of gold sometimes so that they can glitter, that kind of thing. So they're supposed to again be kind of like a little bit more of the gorgeous version of one of these giant monstrosities. In their spare time, which is forever, they like to read and learn spells and even potentially hatch plans to thwart their evil enemies. So in my mind, they do hold a grudge. So if someone begrudges them, they're going to sit there and they're going to learn how to you know, be as evil as possible as a person, and they have all the time in the world. So they'll probably play the long game and the slow roll and the slow punishment games. You know what I mean? They're not inherently evil, but like, again, I feel like if there's a bigger evil out there, they want to get rid of it, and they're going to do what they can to get rid of it. So I feel like they could play the lawful stupid role when it comes to, you know, these kinds of beings. But that is the thing to remember, is that they are not inherently violent. In fact, they would rather avoid conflict at all costs, basically utilizing warning signs, traps, and things like that, just to avoid any kind of face-to-face combat. In fact, they won't fight unless they're actually harassed into it, or it feels like it has no other choice, to which it would use its spells and its magical capabilities to try and, you know, get rid of them. Stat-wise, they are, so mentioned they are lawful good large monstrosities. That is actually considered to be quite beautiful. Their scales themselves give them a natural armor of 18 with an average hit point of 127 and a speed of 40. I feel like with how large these things are, I feel like they should just get double that, because I don't know, to me, they're like 40 feet long in my head. I don't know. Like,
yeah, there should definitely be multiple sizes of Nagas, and then you just adjust the hit point maximum as you go, right?
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. For ability scores, they are a +4 across the board, except for in con and intelligence, which is a +3. So very much a stacked being, with saving throws and everything like Dex, Con, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. I think we're going to see some common themes here, but immune to poison and being charmed, with the dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 14. So I believe that's one of the highest ones. For languages, they speak Celestial and Common. And I think this is where I got the idea that they're celestial beings and like can be celestial beings, is because they have these lawful good versions. They were always, there must have been a good version of humanoid that created this for a good reason, not necessarily just like the evil or spiteful versions, right? So it also bodes to me that they had a table at some, like a place at some celestial beings table at one point. They're like, why else would they speak Celestian or celestial as opposed to some of the other ones, right? So all this does bring them to a whopping CR of 10. So I believe that's the highest of today's. So some of the most common things that we'll find with the Nagas is the fact that they have their rejuvenation capabilities. So for, since this is the first time we're talking about, I'll explain it in whole. So this means that they can return to life if it dies after 1d6 days and regains all of its hit points. The only way you can kill this and prevent that from happening is through a wish spell. So this is where that immortality comes from. You cannot kill them. On top of that, this one is a spellcaster using wisdom is its spell save DC. So it's going to be a DC 16 for its spell saves, and then it's a +8 to hit with any of its attacks. And it only needs verbal components to cast spells, which I thought was a neat like thing that I had to add in there. Like, because normally you don't really talk about, again, the components for casting spells as players, like let alone for monstrosities and celestial beings. But this one it does require only the speaking form. So, which I thought.
Do you think that's because they like don't have hands to do like the semantic?
I think so, that they had to put that in there because like some player somewhere is gonna be like, I'm sorry, how did you do that? Like,
that's all they like can do is speak.
Right. They do have a variety of spells, but a lot do focus on the idea that mentioned before, that they like to try and warn foes away as opposed to doing actual full front battle. So they have spells like thaumaturgy, make loud noises, have them run away. They have command, they have calm emotions, and then they have the scarier ones like banishment and bestow curse. For attacks, they only really have flame strike as like a one that causes large damage. And then for some of the more controlling like kind of spells, they have things like guise and hold person. So very much built to control the battlefield and to avoid being hit, which again, I always find hilarious because they're huge. Like, it's such an interesting con, especially with a snake-like creature that could span like the entire length of a battlefield. It's interesting that you can't just like poke it in the tail. Like, it's just anyways, that's just my thought brain. For action specifically, they have a classic bite, which is a +8 to hit with a 10-foot reach. It does only do 1d8 +4 piercing damage. However, they must make a DC 15 con save or be poisoned and take 10d8 poison damage.
Oh, that's oof.
Nom.
I know. When
Yeah.
I first read the bite, I was like, really? Just like a 1d6? And then I continued reading. It's
Yeah,
like,
same.
oh.
I was like, I understand they're spellcasters, but how is that like a CR10?
Yeah.
If like, but yeah, no, it's that poison damage that's gonna get you for sure. And then on top of that, these ones do have a spit poison, which is a ranged attack of up to 15 to 30 feet. It is a +8 to hit, and it's a DC 15 con save again, or take the 10 D8 poison damage. So these ones are basically built to slow you down, poison you, and then escape or run away or just eat you. So, but yeah, that's
All
the
right.
Guardian.
Nice.
Well then,
All right. Well, let's roll another dice
Sure.
and answer some questions.
14.
17.
4.
Well done.
All right. I'll be asking myself questions. Um, so let's talk about role play first, with these Guardian Nagas. I do like I feel like you don't see many monstrosities that are good. They're either like neutral or evil, I feel like. So I do like the fact that there's these big scary snake guys, but they are generally good. And like these would be your diplomats, like we talked about earlier. Like if there was a diplomatic one, it would be these guardian ones. They would be the ones where you would go see them in a throne room and like give them your case and they would rule upon it. I think more than some of the other ones.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that, like, especially with the role-playing aspect, the fact that they speak Celestial and Common, like they're built to have conversations, and their charisma is a +4. It's one of their higher stats too, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna be a conversationalist. And plus, like, they spend a lot of time, again, their spare time is spent reading spells and learning spells. I feel like if your group rocked up to one of these at one point at a temple and you had a very powerful wizard with you, they're going to be interested.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, show me your spell book, right? Like they're going to want to have that conversation with that person. And, they'll be like, and then they might even go further and be like, who taught you?
Yeah.
Where did you learn from? Because I want to know who they are. And they're going to want to know all of these things so that they can gather more information about what you're fighting. But for the like quest and plot hook ideas for role playing, these are the kinds that would pair with the UNT. In terms, if there's a bigger evil out there, they would unite to as a band against a larger evil. So this could be where these are one of the ones that I would use if you were to play that storyline of we're out seeking to raise a guardian to help us with something, right? This is the one that you're going to want to raise, not one of the other ones.
I really have a different idea for these guys. I feel like they could be leaders. They could also be like an advisor to a king or someone as well. However, I like them best as magic item brokers. So my thought process here is that your quest from level 1, like you're working for a guardian Naga. That is your patron. They're sitting there pushing you to give you quest after quest, because what they do is they've got an arsenal in a pocket dimension that's warded, like the entrance is warded. There's a series of riddles, there's a combat portion of it, but the Guardian Naga essentially guards all of this and is able to bypass it all. And every time that a hero needs an item to defeat great evil, they will lend out that item, but you have to bring it back. And if you don't, they will give out items to other people to go get that item back. So if the hero falls or they get corrupted and they don't want to give it back, it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna send my guys. And so you're at level 1, you're like, hey, okay, so we've been summoned by the Naga, and they know that we are the destined people to do this because we will succeed and bring the magical sword back. But it was a werebear that approached them and took it, then turned evil and won't give the sword back. So we have to go fight a werebear. And then as you go, the Naga is giving you more and more powerful items the entire time, right? To go complete these quests. And so you as a DM know that, hey, I know at level 7, for example, my guys are going to go up against this enemy and this enemy. They got to go here. And it's almost like every single level is a different quest, a different plot line as you guys get more and more powerful. And then it would be revealed at the end that the Guardian Naga is dying because it's been cursed. And so it's the only way someone's used a wish for it. And if it ever dies, it's done. And you guys have to step up to be the guardians of this area. And then maybe at level 20, you get access to that entire armory. And you got to defeat the impending army that's encroaching on the position, right? So I love the Guardian Naga because it doesn't have to be powerful just to guard something. It's CR 10, right? Like that's really cool for like low level play. But by the time you're level 14, you could overpower it. But it's really just the guardian of a much more powerful, like warded off area, right? That you don't have permission to go in yet, right? And this is also going to keep your players good.
Yeah, I would even flip it though too, because you could play it in the opposite direction, that you have either an NPC or a PC whose backstory is they received one of these items or got it by mistake from doing a dungeon dive, and now they're walking around with this extremely powerful weapon, and every once in a while you're getting attacked by folks that are trying specifically to grab this weapon, and then now the quest is to figure out where did this weapon come from, why is it so important, and who's after it, right? So it could be like a side quest to your main storyline, that there's this constant overarching, why do people want this weapon that we have, right?
Yeah, I think that's a different way of looking at the Naga instead of just sitting on the throne in the temple, which is perfectly fine. It's classic, and I love that. But I'm always looking for something a little different.
Yeah. All right, let's get into exploration inspirations. We sort of talked earlier about minions with these and cults. Have you ever come across a good cult? Like, if these are lawful good, if they had a cult, it would be a good cult?
It'd be lawfully stupid good cult, though, right? Because like I think that's like, is it's always usually like to 1 degree further than it should be. And like, so yes, this being and this like guardian Naga is super good and like has this like cult underneath it that's doing good things, but even the Naga's annoyed with them.
Yeah. Like they take it a step too far.
Too far. And then he's just
too far. We gotta rein it in. But yeah, I think that would be very interesting as a party to like come up to a town and it be filled with good cultists, like protecting or worshiping this guardian Naga.
I wouldn't use the word cult. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the idea, but at that point they're a fledgling religion or a sect or you know, I'm gonna call it something else because cult just has such a negative connotation to it. But
it could be like a monk or something, about like a group of monks or something that just
it's the group from the Mummy again, right? Like that was a good cult.
Yeah.
I mean, they killed people, but it was a good cult.
We'll call it an organization.
It's just an after-school club.
Yeah.
I do like the idea that they do have their own, like, especially if these ones are guarding a very specific area, that their temple would exist, but then there would be a like snake-like labyrinth underneath it. So, or vice versa, a labyrinth on top to be able to get underneath to where like the temple is underground. Just because they're long snake-like beings. I feel like they would enjoy traversing the grounds and moving through. It's not, they don't have a burrow speed, but I feel like they would want space for them to be able to roam around and like just be able to hide. And again, they like to disappear. They don't like to fight. So if they're going to be in a battle, they're going to have 700 escape routes, right? To be able to get themselves out of there. Because they don't have teleport or dimension door, any of those fun spells that just bamf them out of where they are. So they're going to have to use ground and space to move through. So for the exploration piece, you can either start in a temple and then find that you have to go underground and traverse these tunnels, or you're going to have to go through these tunnels to get to the temple kind of thing. Yeah,
I'm looking at their spell list and it's a good one, but we have a lot of like
protection and control.
And like, role-playing control, command, calm emotions, banishment, right?
Yeah.
And true seeing and stuff like that. There's not a whole lot of offensive spells here. We'll talk about that when it comes to combat, but and their bite and their spit does well. I mean, I love that their spit has got a range to it that's bigger than 5 feet, but it's not big enough for my taste, right? So I just want there to be, because they have freedom of movement. Like I love the idea of there being these tunnels and stuff for them to move, but I think it should be tight spaces, right? So that they can slither through just fine, but it might be more maze-like for your party to go through, and they're going to be able to move past you because they're not going to take opportunity attacks. They're going to just move right on past, slithering on by, right? And I feel like when you are in their lair, for lack of a better phrase,
Yeah.
if you are in their space, it feels like a confusing maze that is very comforting to them, and it's not about you, right? But do they have statues built for them? Do you know that you're walking into a Naga space before you do it?
I feel like you could do that either way. Because one, it's either an ancient space that has not been traversed in many, many years and no one knows it exists. So all of these things are desolate and destroyed, is one way I was imagining, because they live forever. Or it can be a new one where it's basically now come up and now has worshipers. Therefore, I feel like there would be statues of them if they had worshipers.
It just occurred to me that the best way to keep shit safe would be to keep it on the move. And now I'm thinking about a Naga that runs a pirate ship.
For its magical items.
Yeah, so it's magical items in like the belly of the ship, and it's just got like all these powerful pirates working for it, all in the name of good, right? But it's but
Good
they're not
pirates.
pirates so much as they show up and demand tribute and move on,
Yeah.
right? So and it's not like well, we're gonna hurt you. We won't. If you don't give us tribute, that's your purview. That's fine. It's okay. However, if we die and these artifacts get loose, you will die too. So free lunch, please.
Delightful.
Yeah.
All right. And that brings us to combat. Which we've said these ones aren't very combative. So that one is a tricky one. They're gonna lean into their like holding, what is it, hold person? Do they have
They have whole person.
Yeah, like they're going to do their best to stop you and be like, you don't want to do this. Like they know that they will win in this fight and they don't want that for you. So every time they stop you, they're going to try and talk to you and be like, you don't want to do this. Trust me. I don't want to hurt you. You don't want to get hurt. You need to stop.
I'd say the only fight on site would be against a spirit Naga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Yuan-Ti that it like if they're not in cahoots with, right?
Yeah.
They still have that rivalry. It's still in their history. Because it does specifically say the only way it would partner with them is if there was a greater evil. So I think that Yuan-Ti would be fight on sight unless they prove otherwise. So
yeah, they got to walk in holding a white flag, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, to be able to have any kind of open dialogue or conversation. But I kind of want to think about what happened when these ones die, though, because like again, they have that rejuvenation where they do reappear. But like, if you were to make that wish and have it not rejuvenate, would it have a skeleton that hits the ground? Do you think it would just poof into celestial dust and like off to the skies? But like, I don't know. They seem like very powerful wizard-like beings. Like it has to have an effect on the area. It's almost like it would like become a giant poison puddle is how I imagine it. Like you have killed one of the only lawful good celestial monstrosities. And so now it just poisons the earth because
it's been around for centuries and longer than history.
Yeah. So if you wish this away, you've ruined the forest. You've killed it. Like
maybe it's not so much the environment gets cursed by it, but you do. If you do the killing blow, you take on a massive curse. See, I want to go the other way. I want it to just be like it falls apart in snake meat. When a wizard dies, that's just a corpse.
Yeah.
Right? Like this thing dies and it's snake meat till you eat it. Right.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get like you should be able to harvest parts of a dead Naga and get access to its spell list or get access to its like if you were to make a breastplate out of the scales of this, then you're going to have immunity to being charmed and poisoned. Shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So since Adam held his action, that means I'm up next with the Spirit Nagas. So Spirit Nagas are basically the opposite of the Guardian Nagas that we just learned about. They are filled with spite, seeking vengeance on anyone who has wronged them or that they think has wronged them. Their lairs are pretty bleak caverns and ruins, and their favorite pastime is creating new spells, and when they aren't doing that, they are most likely enslaving all creatures that live in their territory. While they sound awful to meet, they're actually quite charming and use that to lure their victims closer so they can sink their poisoned fangs into them. So, not as good as the Guardian guys. We are large monstrosities and chaotic evil. They have a CR of 8, and they have an AC of 15, so quite a bit lower than the Guardians, who had the 18. And an average of 75 hit points. Their speed is also 40. Their highest stat is Strength with a +4, followed by Dex, Intelligence, and Charisma with a +3, and Constitution and Wisdom have a +2. Saving throws, they get Dex and Charisma with a +6, and Constitution and Wisdom with a +5. Like the others, they are immune to being charmed and the damage and conditions of poison. They have dark vision of 60 feet and speak Abyssal and Common. Looking at their abilities, they also have the Rejuvenation, where if they die, they come back in 1d6 days. And they are a 10th level spellcaster. You know, snakes weren't scary enough. We needed to make them all spellcasters also.
Yep.
That's how I feel about these. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, giant snakes weren't horrible enough. Let's give them spells. So their spell list for cantrips, they have Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and Ray of Frost. First level, Charm Person, Detect Magic, Sleep. Second, Detect Thoughts and Hold Person. Third, Lightning Bolt and Water Breathing. Fourth is Blight and Dimension Door. And fifth is Dominate Person. And finally, they also get the bite attack with a +7 to hit. It has a 10-foot reach and does 1d6 +4 piercing damage. And the target must make a con save or do 7d8 poison on a fail or half on a success. They do not get the spit poison like the Guardians do. Their only attack is the bite.
Yeah, with the poison, though, and it's 78 as opposed to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they are a CR of 8 versus a 10. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. All right, so that's what I've got for the Spirit Nagas. Oh, I do want to also read the quote that is in the book because I think it very much like sums them up. If you destroy me, I will return, and everyone you care about will suffer for it. And that is from a Spirit Naga.
I want that on my tombstone. You
Yeah.
know, like
yeah.
big Megan energy.
Yeah. All right.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I have to point out because this is one of the best names ever. Because they usually give you a name. Explicita Defilus
Yeah,
is
I didn't
such
say
a
it because I
good
didn't
name.
think I could.
Explicita Defilus is so
Yeah.
good. That right there, like that inspires me. Even for the Guardian Nagas, they've got to have big fuck off, amazing, almost Harry Potter level names because Defilus is such a Harry Potter villain or a Sith Lord.
Very
right?
much so.
Like,
yeah.
Very cool. I'm a big fan of the naming convention here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's roll some dice and I'll ask some more questions.
8.
10.
17.
I'll sit down.
All right, so role playing with the Spirit Nagas is going to be very different than the Guardian Nagas. They are big on revenge, and I like the part in the lore where it says on people who have wronged them or they think have wronged them.
Yeah.
Like they don't really care if you actually did or not. They will go after you either way. I honestly got some big like narcissist feels from these ones specifically. So that is how I would role play them. They are the best. They don't care what you think you are. You're not the best. I know better. I don't care if you say you didn't wrong me. You did. So I will get my revenge. So that is how I would role play the Spirit Nagas. Just
My big
think
thing
about
here,
that most narcissistic person you know and go for it.
my big thing here is again they're immortal. So you got the player that every group has the player that shows up with their character backstory that includes my ancestral sword or I'm descendant of someone or like there's always that tie back to previous generations.
I would never.
Oh, okay. But with the Spirit Naga, it has waited. It has waited now because your great grandfather was an adventurer and wronged it somehow. And it knows, it remembers, and it has waited now because at this point, this is the best way for it to start lopping off limbs off of your family tree. Couldn't get to the powerhouse, but now you're here and it's amassed a certain amount of power or minions or whatever, and now it is going to start targeting you're going to get a note that your cousin died. You get it like a letter shows up from your mother. Your cousin has passed away, please come home. And by the time you get home, 4 cousins and your uncle, like that side of the family tree is gone, right? And then slowly, systematically, your family's getting hunted down, and it is a spirit Naga. And this will kick off at level 4, and then you'll be level 7 or 8 by the time that it's time to fight this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm all about the blood oath, the blood debt here that is going to tie into a character's backstory and punish them for having I'm a destined hero. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I like the role-playing aspect behind, if you go through that storyline, Adam, you can add in how you learn that this thing is like almost either controlling or like within the mindset of this person's like history.
Yeah.
Because I almost want to play with the fact that this thing can minor illusion and like basically do a lot of the like dominate person and stuff like that, and it's going to start putting ideas in your head that like your group is against you, and it's just going to make you spiteful of your group so that you end up wanting to kill or murder or hurt your group and your people, and that could end up with a lot of like intergroup like role-playing opportunities, because something that someone did nice for you, all of a sudden you hear in the back of your mind, they did that because they just want you to like them, or they did that because they actually want you to not like this person, or this person actually stole this item from you. And so it like puts these ideas in your head that every good thing someone does to you is actually really bad and against you. So it's like that playing with someone's anxieties. And then eventually it's like it'll just do that to you until it drives you crazy, and then you learn that it's because your great grandfather pissed this thing off, and now it's trying to make your life a living hell. Yeah. To your point, Peps, find the most narcissistic characteristic and use it.
It's just gaslighting the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
All right, exploration. With them being so charming, but they like enslave everybody around them, I think if you come up into their area and like you would find people chained together and like doing the work and like the bullshit mining and like building like temples and statues for like these would have statues of them because they are the best, right? And they would like demand that.
Yeah.
But when you talk to these people who look like hell and are chained together and are clearly, not doing this willingly, they will say they are doing it willingly. They will be charmed. They will think that this was their idea. And like it will seem very wrong. Like, I'm gonna free you guys. We don't want to be freed. What do you mean?
Yeah, we're fine. And it's like, what do you mean? Like you're starving, like you have nothing, like you have nothing in your town. It's like, yeah, we're fine. We want it this way.
Yeah.
It's better for us.
Yeah.
It's not a phase, Mom.
Yeah.
It's not a phase.
I'm just gonna keep, doing this work until I die because that's what I am supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's, don't bother me. Bad things will happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that these ones, when it comes to environment and exploration, these guys do have statues. They very much like leaning into the narcissist, right? Like you walk into the temple where they are, and it's not a temple that they happen to guard. No, this is a temple that they have built up around themselves because it's their fucking temple, right? Their cultists come in and worship. And as a matter of fact, you walk in through a huge statue of its open mouth, right? Like it is going to be just the most bombastic, over the top, like pits of fire burning all around as it sits on the. This is your He-Man villain, and I really like that.
It's the dramatic,
Yeah.
flair for the dramatics,
You know who this is? This is Jafar.
I was gonna say this is your vizier that's like whispering in your ear and controlling the actual like.
This is Jafar when he turned into the big snake at the end.
Even the imagery, like the snake in the book, like the art for it reminds me of the Jafar snake.
Yeah,
like,
this one is like blue and red versus yours that was like green.
But it's got like the winged horns.
Yeah,
almost.
it has the more wing, and its tongue is sticking out and it looks much more angry than
So I also, speaking of, I also want to point out the fact that if you cast the same spell every day for 100 days, that spell becomes permanent. They have minor illusion. They could be posing as a guardian Naga.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
They killed them. Nobody came into this area for 100 days, and now they look like them, and they are in control of this power, these items, this knowledge, whatever, right? Or they're whispering in the ear of a king and very much being a Jafar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But no one thinks anything of it because they're like, oh, it's the guardian Naga who's lawful good. It does only good things. So it must be for the greater good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and between detect thoughts, charm person, and dominate person, it's gonna rule things. It's
Yeah.
going to have its way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like also like, and speaking of just the exploration piece of its layers and nests, like for folks that if you're going the route of this is now taken over a guardian Naga's space, all of those magical weapons that were hidden away are now on display.
Yeah,
Like they're like
Mhm.
like lining the walls and like in glass cabinets and just
it's a
like
trophy room.
it's a trophy room.
Yeah.
And it's no longer just like we're guard here to guard these things. Like it is just a trophy room that just sits there for it to be like, I have collected all of these. And it's like, no, you didn't. The guy you killed before you did, but that's fine. Like
Well, he collected them from that guy.
yeah, there you go. It's like one collection. It counts.
Yeah. I collected them from the guy I killed.
It's one nacho, you know?
Yeah.
Like
What's interesting here, I know I just said a moment ago, like there's pits of fire all over the place and it's very dramatic. They have water breathing. And I think that's because they're snake-like. I think that was the train of thought here because there's nothing anywhere else that says water.
Yeah.
If you are not going to put them in a water temple of some sort, change that spell. Pick a different third level or a different, third level non-combat spell and have at her because that is a useless piece of shit sitting on the
Yeah.
spell list.
yeah.
Yeah, I like just make him amphibious. Like just let him breathe water. Like
Yeah.
That's- I don't
Or do
know.
that thing where like hold your breath for up to 8 hours or whatever, like, and I'm fine.
yeah.
Oh no, they don't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
require air. What is water breathing?
That's
on
true.
that? Fuck that. Useless.
You could use it as like this bleeds into combat a little bit, but you could almost give it to someone else, dump them in a tank of water for like a sense of like security, and then remove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a
Alright,
torture
is-
spell in my
Is
mind.
that a concentration? Is that
For-
a concentration spell? Water breathing?
Water breathing? Let me look it up. I think it is. No, I don't think it is because you can cast on other people, right?
That's like if it is and you cast it on somebody, like an ally of the group coming to get you and send them in the water, like go
It-
ahead and hit me. I might lose this concentration. Your person's gonna die.
It's not a concentration, but it is up to 10. It does say it has to be a willing creature.
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna be dunked into a
That's
into
that's
a
the
pool
torture.
of water in a cage, would you like to be able to breathe or no?
Yeah. Like we're just going torture spell.
Like they're going to say yes.
This is basically like our version of waterboarding. Like,
Yeah, like as they're getting lowered down. Now, do you want to be able to breathe down there?
Well, hold on. That's really interesting. What if its temple is at the bottom of a like massive sea, right? And so its minions are the people that it is dragged down there with it in this underwater temple that have to return to this Naga over and over and over again so that they can have water breathing cast upon them because it will take them too long to get up to the surface. In the middle of it, they'll drown. Right. So they're not willing minions. They're essentially enslaved by this, like, I will make it so you can breathe. And now your players have got to get down there and figure out how to fight off all of these zealots because we don't want to kill you, but we need to because we need the Naga, right?
Crazy.
Yeah. All right. Combat. I think combat's gonna be a lot more fun with these than the Guardians, because the Guardians are just gonna like stop you. With things like Dimension Door and like Detect Thoughts and Dominate Person, like it's gonna be a lot of fuckery. They're gonna be in and out, all over the place. They're going to want to fight you, versus the Guardians who do not at all. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for very fun combat with these and like just messing up the board completely.
Also, you have minor illusion, and my favorite thing to do when you've got this is an intelligent creature, it's a CR8, we're talking, this is boss level monster.
Yep.
Have them enter the room and they can smell like rotting corpses but they can't see anything, right? And as they walk towards you, they don't realize that the minor illusion is that the floor exists. Floors don't need to make noise. They don't need to move or anything. It's just floor exists. Dex save for everybody as they run forward, right? And if they fail, they disappear through the floor onto the spikes that are covered in corpses of the other idiots that have tried to do this in the past, right?
Yeah.
So minor illusion is loads of fun while you're in combat because you can have a and you turn around and see that there's this assassin behind you. You're gonna make other people waste their turn, right? Fighting this thing, and they go to hit. I rolled a 17, misses. What? Well, it's because it's an illusion. Like it passes right through them. Do a perception check. You do, if it's better than your passive perception, you don't notice this, right?
Yeah.
My big complaint is that it's a spell save DC of 14 on all of this, which doesn't feel like enough for a Naga. I want it to be a 60. By the time you're level 8, you're probably beating all of this shit handily, right? So then again, I always beef up my spell save DCs because my players will tend to just be strategic with that kind of shit in the first place. So
yeah, very fair. My only thing is, like, I don't understand why they don't have a constrict or grapple ability.
Really,
Like,
Megan?
yeah,
that's
true.
what you want is grappling?
I'm just surprised. That's all. You know, like it just makes sense to me.
It's
Like, again,
true.
the scene in Jafar when he wraps around Jasmine and, like, you know, like it just, like, you just want that kind of theatrics with these, especially this one. I would want that theatric with that. Like, it's just gonna make you a minor illusion think that you're wrapped in a warm little blanket, and all of a sudden you snap out of it and you're being constricted by this snake. Like,
Yeah, I think that it's because they're Cobra coded, right? Like they've all
Yeah.
got the hood, right? We haven't mentioned it yet, but all of the Nagas have hoods in 5th edition. They
Yeah.
don't in other editions. It's kind of hit and miss. But I think that's why, like, they're venomous. They're not going to constrict and squeeze you. But you know I'm going to add that in the homebrew because I got to lock this fucking monk down.
how dare you?
Well, stop stunning my shit.
Oh Lord. But yeah, other than that, like, I do feel like it's going to be very aggressive when it fights you. Because it wants to show off what it can do, right? So from a role-playing aspect and a combat aspect, it wants to show you its good stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
It's also immortal and it's smart and wise. You're
Yeah.
not fighting it at level 8. You're fighting at level 6 because it's engineered it to be that way. Because
Yeah.
it's hedging its bets it needs to win. And it's got minions with poison-tipped arrows lining the room. Like, you're going to be fucked going up against one of these guys because this is one of the monsters that plans.
yeah.
Which means you're fighting your dungeon master that's planning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I also think it's going to go for your magical creatures first.
Yeah.
Because it knows the only way it can be killed is through a spell, a very specific spell. And it doesn't want to risk that you have that spell. So if you go in with a group of, like, a barbarian and another, like, fighter, and then suddenly a wizard is right behind them, it's gonna dive straight for your wizard because it's gonna be like, nope,
Yeah.
no spells for you, and it's gonna take away one of your abilities to do, like, it's gonna, I don't know, spit poison at you or, like, bite your hand so you can't use one of your hands, so you can't use do your component spells to be able to, like, move your hands or something like that. Like, it's going to stop you from being able to use that spell.
Okay, there we go. I'm getting rid of water breathing and I'm giving it counter spell.
There you go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I do think with these, with, like, it says that they're very charming. And they have things like, I think they would hold person and make you stop and then give you the big BBG like speech. Like, these are the ones you have to have a speech prepared on why I am the best and you will never win. And, like, you are going to have to listen to that monologue before you can run in and try to fight them.
This is yeah. It's gonna
Like,
want you to
you are
listen.
nothing. I have been around for centuries, and I am older than history itself. And like, they are going to have that complex, you know, where, like, you are going to have to sit and listen to that shit before you can even pop off anything.
We now call those the blowjob monologue.
Yeah. And, like, if
Speaking
you
of,
are
they-
defendant, it would be like, your grandfather tried, and look, I'm still here, and where is he? Like,
It'll give you your historical background.
Yeah.
Speaking of the blowjob monologue, they also have dominate person, which we can't understate enough. And dominate person just means that they're going to take, because it's a wisdom save, they're taking your barbarian or your fighter or your ranger, probably not your ranger, barbarian, fighter, paladin off the table. And it's concentration. It's up to a minute. So the rogue, the wizard, and the barbarian walk in. The barbarian is now fighting the rogue as this thing tries to eat the wizard, right? Like that's how this works. And and yes, it's concentration up to a minute. If that doesn't work for them, they might just make the barbarian run away for 4 rounds and then stop and then hold person on the wizard, because the barbarian now has to spend 4 rounds getting back, right? So, and there's nothing in dominate person, which we've seen in some of the other spells. Oh, if you you can't make them do anything that's going to harm themselves or anything. No, you can with dominate person. Dominant person is one of those ones where, like, attack yourself, hit yourself as hard as you can, over and over and over. So the barbarian is just holding their great maul, beating themselves in the face over in the corner, while you are taking on whatever the big glass cannon is. And like they're smart enough to know who's got D6 hit dice. Like,
they've seen all these adventures before. This is nothing new to them.
Yeah,
And
like,
They know.
You're
They
like,
know your abilities.
yeah.
and they're capital E evil too, right? Just because you're unconscious doesn't mean that they're not going to keep attacking. They want the kill. They're coming for your death saves, right? So
They've seen warriors get up too many times that they're like, absolutely not. Like, oh no.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is if I'm going to make them bigger than large. I don't like them as just large. I'll make them huge or gargantuan just because they're scarier that way. And now we've got a swallow mechanic involved. So they knock you to 0, they swallow you, and you're just taking auto hits at the beginning of every round. Like, I can be pretty evil with these things with just a very little bit of homebrew.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And like, speaking of homebrew, it does say like their favorite pastime is creating spells. I think you can homebrew some spells to throw into that list also.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
Like
if you have
spells that
access to
people
the
have never
books.
seen.
Yeah, if you have access to the books that the others don't have, like the Critical Role books that have all the gravity spells and shit, like in the time spells, go nuts. Just
like,
be
I know
aware of
there's-
your spell slots.
Yeah, there's a lot of like very creative people out there on, DM's Guild and that kind of stuff that, like, if you yourself like don't know how to create a spell or is not comfortable like making one that is balanced, you can go to things like DM's Guild and, search Instagram and that kind of thing for people who do create that type of stuff. Yeah. All right, so that is our spirit Nagas. We have one more.
So that brings us to the Bone Naga. And the Bone Naga, they don't have a whole lot of lore to them. The idea here is that sometimes the Yuan-Ti will show up during that 1d6 days where the Guardian or Spirit Nagas are regenerating. And then the Yuan-Ti will actually do a ritual and make it so that they don't come back right. And only their skeleton rises as a shadow of their former power. So we've taken the CR10 Guardian or the CR8 Spirit and bumped them down to a CR4 Bone Naga. It is lessened, and I really like this for a number of reasons, especially because it's scarier and you get to hit it at lower levels. We're still talking large undead, and they're lawful evil. Now, instead of chaotic evil or lawful good, they're just lawful evil for some reason. We split the difference there. Their AC is the same as Spirit Naga, it's 15. Their hit points are what you would expect to be a fairly beefy level 4 CR4 creature. So it's 9d10 plus 9, which averages out of 58. Your speed's only 30 feet. You're not as fast as the other ones, but all of your stats are still pretty fucking good. Again, not as great, but they're all in the positives. Everything is a +3, the Dex and Charisma are +3, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Strength are +2, and Con is +1. You have the same immunities. You have the same like dark vision and the same languages. It says +1 other common, +1 other language. Yeah, it's whatever the other language is, if it's Spirit or Guardian, because they spoke Celestial or Abyssal, right? So
yeah.
When it comes to spellcasting, you actually have 2 lists, and it's dependent upon which kind of Naga died. And it's just a lesser version that doesn't get, like, it only goes up to 3rd level spell slots because they're a 5th level spellcaster. So it's a spell save of 12 that you got to beat, which is middling at best. You're going to be able to have half of your party beat that. No problem, even in tier 1. So I don't like these guys to use them as multiples later on, if you find a UNT temple and 4 bone Nagas show up, they're still going to be ineffective as all fuck, right? Because even their only attack for the Guardian bone Naga, the only thing that they have is a Sacred Flame for an actual attack, and then that's a DC 12. Like, you're passing that. It's easy. It's not a big deal because it requires the deck save instead of a to hit. As a matter of fact, I don't think they have anything that is a to hit on the Guardian side. Although they do have Ray of Frost and Lightning Bolt for the Spirit Nagas, which is interesting, but it's not as good as having an actual Naga. So, I mean, I'm going to probably have my players stumble upon this by accident or in a UNT temple, or they went to go talk to the Naga and find it dead, early on in the campaign, right, as this thing rises up. But there's no real concept of what they want. Or how much memory they retain, what their motivations are, or even if they are still guarding whatever it was that they were guarding. They also have a bite attack, which is 2d6 plus 3, which is actually better piercing damage than the other ones, but it's only got 3d6 poison damage. And I guess that's just because there's more tooth. There's no gums to stop you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just a skeletal snake.
Skeletal.
There you go. That's for you, Casey. So, yeah, that's it. Also, we've gone from monstrosity to undead, of course, right?
Yep.
But there's not a whole lot to these guys, except the lore and the setup, I think, can be fairly interesting. And you can get to it at low level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let's roll one more time.
12.
Natural 20.
Must be nice.
I'm getting it out of the way now. I have D&D later today, and it's not going to go well. So.
I've either rolled 17 or 1, I think.
I'm all over the place.
All right. Yeah. That's all I've got today. Okay, so role playing a bone Naga.
Lawful evil, I have trouble with this one because it's no longer sadistic and narcissistic. It could still be a little sadistic, but it's here to follow the rules. And my thought process is, I was supposed to come back and you fucking interrupted me. This is not how shit should be. This is bad. This is negative. And so the idea of you didn't follow the rules could be really good when they then attack the UNT, or when they come after the party going, you should have rescued me. You were late. I was expecting you before. Look what happened. You let this happen. And so it's more vengeful than anything else from where I'm standing on this. The lawful evil is an interesting take. Also, they don't have vocal cords, but they can speak. So that's cool and magical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, magic, semantics. Hand wave it.
They're also only bone and can move around. So
Here we are.
yeah. All right, Megan, I think you're next because
I'm next. Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. So I like the idea that the original Guardian Naga partnered with UNT because there was a Spirit Naga in its area. And it's just I need this thing to go away. It's coming for my magical items. And so it partners with the UNT, puts together a party to go and fight this thing, and then turns into a bone Naga. And then wash, rinse, repeat. And then those bone Naga become servants to the Guardian. So now if you go visit the Guardian and you're against it or fight it, it now has these bone Nagas as its own protection, like its wall before you get to it, if it feels that you are being aggressive towards it. Because I feel like you could, because the way that the Spirit Naga works, it could eventually, again, mind control these things to the point of permanence where they now protect it. So this Guardian Naga is now essentially going around killing Spirit Nagas and harvesting their bone versions of themselves as their own guardians. So that's an interesting long-term setup as to why you would have bone versions of these in the realm of a Guardian one or what have you. And then it could also be the opposite. The spirit one is collecting the bones of the guardians and it's taking over its realms one by one, right? So then it might be your group's job to get rid of this spirit one, but it's going to be followed by a bunch of bones, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you definitely have to lean into the Yanti
connection somehow.
Connection there, right?
Yeah.
I like the idea because they will team up with each other, but also still don't trust each other or think the other there's not trust there in that relationship. If the Naga does go down during that battle, then the Yuan-ti does this to be like, see, we're the better ones. Like, and this would be a good plot for your party. They come across this bone Naga and now it wants revenge on the Yuan-ti that did this to it.
Yeah.
Like, the only way to reverse this is to defeat them or make them fix it. I need your help because they have weakened me and I cannot be weakened. So they send you off to deal with the auntie that did this to them.
So when these guys die, they're dead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have the rejuvenate. Yeah.
No. So just pointing out, like, that's also why they would fight. I was thinking if they are going to just pop back as their previous self, they would be like, kill me. Let's just do this. But no, they're fighting for survival on this as well.
Yeah.
Because they are so used to just coming right back and being immortal, and like, this is a big like shock to this is my last chance. All right.
Sorry, if you're doing also that long arching storyline of how the spirit Naga is took over the guardian spirit, like guardian Naga's like temple, and is like posing as them, and then I don't know, play that somehow where it will then, as a fake guardian, partner with the Yuan-ti to go after other spirit Nagas and turn them into bones, so that this is the one remaining like Highlander storyline of the spirit Naga. I will be the only remaining one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it would also be a good way for your party, if they don't have access to a wish spell, to partner with the auntie.
Yeah.
To do this so that they can finally get rid of the Naga. Like,
well, I mean, that could also be one of the like forbidden magics that they're guarding, is the ritual to kill them.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. Exploration. What do you got?
I mean, you're in a Yuan-ti temple for this one. I don't think that you're in the Naga's home base. For me, they've dragged the Naga's corpse over here and done the ritual because they have days to get it done, right? So they're going to set this up the appropriate way. And I'm going to make it all sorts of scary evil, like sigils written in blood on like massive murals of this all around this big temple, and skinned snakes hanging from the ceiling, and mortals that have been sacrificed on an altar. Like, we're dealing with Yuan-ti and ancient evils. This is the kind of gruesome, brutal shit I'm going to hit them with early. When I want a horror moment in my tier 1 campaign to end it off, the raising of the bone Naga is how I'm going to do it. Which seems nuts because the Yuan-ti themselves are way more powerful than a bone Naga, or right, like, and some of them are more powerful than a guardian Naga, right? So this could be kind of the beginning of, oh fuck, we're fighting snakes for all of tier 2, right?
Yay, snakes.
Yay, snakes.
All right, Megan, what do you got for exploration?
Not necessarily like environmental stuff, but like thinking the fact that like the bones of one of these might actually be an item that is well sought after. And like so you're like, for years, this bone Naga has not been killed or removed yet because it's able to escape, but is missing bones. Because people take bones from it as they fight it, because they use those in their weaponry, or like the Yuan-ti use it to harvest those bones. Because like if they just let the other thing die, those things in my mind might disappear. So the Yuan-ti actually turn them into bone Nagas to harvest the bones and use them within their weaponry. And so for an exploration piece, you might go into a Yuan-ti encampment and like everything is made from these bones. And it's because they give some kind of protective magic, or they just don't break, or they're not brittle, or they will always pierce. Like there's no way, like, you know, like it'll have some kind of magical capability. And then that's an exploration clue for your group to be like, where did all these bones come from? And then you get the history of where the bone Naga comes from.
They're Yuan-ti wands.
Yeah.
Right, every one of these.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now, what is this thing going to sound like too, as it's like slithering around? Because it's not. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of like little clickety clacks. Yeah. Unfortunately not quite as girthy, but at least he's ribbed.
Yeah, AO for no one's pleasure. I now imagine the sound. You know how like millipedes do have a sound, but it's so small that you can't hear it.
Yeah.
But it's that sound, like, but at like higher volume of that sound, like the millions and millions of clickety clacks of the hundreds of little tiny peats, you know?
Mhm.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what if like they've went into hiding because they don't want their like subjects to know that they have become this bone naga. Like they are now vulnerable, right? But they still need to like put on this like this
Pay no
persona
attention to
that
the
they're
man
there.
behind the curtain.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, like they've gotta keep up appearances in their kingdoms or whatever until they figure this shit out, because I think they still would have that like I'm the best like thinking, because it's so ingrained in them. So this is like taking them down a peg and them having to like figure that out, and there would just be rumors all over of like, yes, we have this almighty ruler. Well, can we talk to him? Well,
Not
nobody's
so
talked to
much,
him in like
no.
5 years.
Do you think that
They just
maybe
have-
I'm trying to figure out if I was thinking, well, the Bone Naga wants to be turned back into the Guardian Naga. Yes, more power, but now I'm doing good shit again. And then if the answer is yes, is that lawful evil just willing to do it no matter the cost?
And the survivability, right? Like, because they
Yeah.
know that they're not immortal anymore. Like they're like, if I die, I die. So it's that lawful evil comes from, I'm going to do what I need to do to get back to where I was, because I can be good again, but I need to do evil things to get there.
Yeah.
One of the general rules in Dungeons and Dragons, and most fantasy these days, which I don't like, is that for every spell, there's an equal and opposite spell. And so if you've got a spell that's going to ruin their ability to resurrect appropriately, there should be a spell out there that where you can reverse the ritual, right? So maybe that's what it is, which just means you need to do it again. And that means we need to flay a bunch more snakes. We need to kill and sacrifice a whole bunch more humanoids. And like the Bone Naga is not going to care, right? But the Guardian Naga will when it wakes up.
Yeah, it'll have that like like angel versus angelus. Like
Yeah.
I've got my soul back and now I'm
Yeah.
tortured by the things I've done.
It's time for me to brood for another 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Don't mind if I do.
I do want to mention I love that they have mending
Yeah.
as a cantrip. So like there wouldn't be any broken shit around them. They'd just
Such
be
a-
like fixing things.
I was thinking that it would be really weird for them to have. Then I'm like, well, they probably have to. How often are they fighting?
Mhm.
The people come for their shit, right? I bet they've got to fix their location, their surroundings, their lair on a semi-frequent basis, because mending can only do like what, an inch at a time or something. It's gonna take a while. You don't have prestidigitation just to like wipe it clean.
Mhm.
It's growing back the bones that it broke.
Yeah. And I like that the other ones get mage hand because snakes don't have hands. So
So why not? We figured
how
it
are they
out.
opening that door, you know?
Yeah. They don't have doors. They have
Yeah.
sliding doors. They have rocks.
Mage hand it.
Sorry, it's a foot, not an inch, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. I believe that brings us to combat.
Oh, actually, sorry. Speaking of mending, that might be they have it because it can fix magical items.
Yeah, that makes
That
sense.
might be why they
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah.
Combat for these guys. I mean, depends on which kind. Their bite's going to be more important than the spells a lot of time. I mean, when you're going to do the spirit bone naga, it's lightning bolt, right? And then you're trying to cast sleep on people. We've kind of overlooked the fact that sleep is on the list, because when you're level 8 party, sleep might take out one person, might.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, it would probably take out the wizard or the sorcerer, right? Because they're D6 hit points. But when it comes to a bone naga, it's far more likely to use sleep because you're dealing with level 4 characters. So a couple of them will drop. You will be able to take them out and then hold person, and the last one gets lightning bolt, ray of frost, right? Like it's got a whole lot of crowd control here, which is nice.
Yeah, I think the classic crowd control and like battlefield management kind of goes along with these, but I do want to bring in the fact that these will fight you because it's the survivability, and they're going to lose because of their survivability, right? But back to my like wanting to add a grapple with this one, I would give it a constrict. You would also have piercing damage from its bones as they like pierce into your skin as it holds you.
Yeah.
Who hurt
Just
you,
saying.
Megan?
It's a little flavor I'd add in there, you know?
I think it was you, Adam, with all the grapples.
I've learned. I learned from watching you.
I like that they have calm emotions also, because like you come into this and see a giant bone snake, you're going to freak out, right? Like if it's the guardian one, immediately like you're going to have to calm emotions, or they're gonna like freak out on you. Yeah. Like your party sees a bone snake, they are immediately attacking.
Scared.
Immediately. But yeah, I do agree they would lean more into their bite at this stage, I think, versus the others. Yeah, it is interesting that they get an extra d6 of piercing damage with that bite.
Extra bones. I don't know.
I don't know. Just cause. But yeah, it definitely, like, I think they would somewhat lean into what they were before in those combat tactics. So, like, the Guardian one, to attack than just a straight Guardian. I was going to attack because it's the spirit one. And, like, that's what they do. But I do also agree they will run away if they feel like they're getting down there and hit points also. Yeah. Or they would, like, that's when they would use their whole person. It wouldn't be to get you to stop. It would be so they could get away.
Yeah.
I also want to point out for the Guardian Naga, it has Bestow Curse, which doesn't necessarily feel like it's combat, but it's combat because while it does take concentration, you've got to give up some of the other concentration spells. You do this before combat kicks off, and while the target is cursed, your attacks and spells deal an extra 1d8 necrotic damage. And then you can do more to other people as you get to cast this other times as well, right? If that one isn't doing it for you, they've got enough AC, or they're going to pass your whatever, then you choose one ability score. And while cursed, the target has disadvantage on ability checks and saving throws made with that ability score. It just makes you more potent, right, when it comes to the actual fight, because the Guardian Naga doesn't have a whole lot going for it. The Bone Guardian Naga, right, as far as offense goes.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you've been inspired by the conversation in this episode, please feel free to reach out and share your creativity and ideas with us and the rest of the community. You can reach us on Facebook and Instagram, or on our subreddit r/itsAmimic. Also, if you're feeling particularly generous, please follow and subscribe and leave us positive reviews, likes, and comments. Engagements like that help us pop up on search engines and keep this show running.
Okay, so I talked a little bit earlier about there being, like, it's weird that they're monstrosities. And so I actually took a second to look it up. In 4th edition, they were magical beasts, but they were either called immortal magical beasts, or one of them, the primordial Naga, was an elemental magical beast, and it's all fire and acid and shit. In 3rd edition, they were aberrations. So I thought that was interesting. Also,
so they've kind of like grown in their, I guess, importance, maybe? I don't know. Like,
yeah, I feel like nobody knows what to do with them. They're cool and interesting, and they're always included in the base monster manual, but like we don't know what we're doing. Also, I'm going to share a screen here for half a second because Peps, you need to be able to see. For everybody else, you should look up the monster manual for 3.5 and find out what a Naga looks like, because let me tell you something, it is exactly the shit that Peps doesn't like. Look at that humanoid face.
Whoa.
Isn't that gross?
It has hair.
Ew.
And that's some Beetlejuice shit right there.
I was gonna say that is a Beetlejuice snake, and I hate it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna stop that now.
Wow. No thanks. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, like I said, I need to stop researching right before bed. I'm glad I didn't come across that.
Yeah, no thanks. Hard pass.
Do you guys have any other final thoughts before we wrap up on Nagas?
I there's a part of me that wishes that we had a little bit more of that historical documentation 5th edition so that we can use them a little bit more as intended. But to your point, Adam, I don't think anybody really knows what they want to do with them. So then the benefit is that you could homebrew what it is they're guarding, why they're guarding it, who they were attached to. They could be the god, that your players worship or what have you. So like there's a little bit more freedom of play because no one really knows what we want to do with them. But like a little bit of guidance would have been nice,
Yeah, I do feel like they should have been celestial or abyssal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that the two of them are, one is celestial and one is abyssal, like right there in the languages and their mentalities, just screams, give me a little bit more history here, right?
Yeah, it does make me wonder, like, were these created by two separate humanoid cultures in the past, or was it one that saw the value in having a good and an evil side?
Yeah, having the yin and yang of things, right? Like
Right.
the balance of all things.
Like,
But
you could make it so that these were created by two opposing cultures
yeah,
that had similar magics and knowledge and that kind of thing, and created their own guardians to help against the battle that was constantly going between the two. Or it would be very interesting, like, what kind of culture does see that value in having one of each?
yeah.
So you got to kind of write your own lore if you want to dig
Also,
deep
the thought of
into
like
that.
what is deemed as an important space that needs to be guarded, right? Like that could be anything to anyone. You know what I mean? And because it's so ancient, it might be something that is no longer deemed as important or worthy in like the new societal norms. So like it's like, I am taking care of this throne chair that meant a lot to this king once, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So that's also something you can play with, right? Is like, what is deemed worthy or sacred?
Yeah, I mean, it is like these mortal beings created immortal guardians to like protect their shit for all of eternity. Did they think that they would die out eventually, or just have the ego of we will also be around forever?
Yeah. I also feel like that's a great rug pull too. Like there's legends of this weapon, this item, this thing that is protected by Naga, and then when you get to it, you find out that yes, anyone of this bloodline can wield it, and the bloodline just doesn't exist anymore. Like, well, it's a fucking sword.
Yeah, it does nothing now, because whenever anybody else wields it, it does nothing. So no longer important or sacred. Congratulations. Oh, Lord. Anyway, that's all for this part of our conversation on Nagas in D&D 5th edition. Please take a second to engage with a like, follow, comment, and review to help push our engagement. And don't forget to subscribe to find future inspirations for your campaigns.
If you'd like to support us, we have a store with some merch and a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com, as well as a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Please check the show notes for this episode to see links, time codes, and credits. And don't forget to reach out and share your own inspirations.
No.
It is amazing to not be DM1 for a change. I love being DM2 or 3 because I get to just snooze through the opening.
We usually say we like to be DM3 because they don't have a cold open.
Yeah, DM3 is the best place to be.
The best place to be. There's very little responsibility in being DM3.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna come up with a
forget
new.
what episode it was. It might have been Time Dragons where I got DM3, and I was like, "Fuck yes!" I have such a busy week. I could not tell with anything else.
Though that was what I was thinking. I was thinking of even canceling today's recording because I was like, I don't want to be running around, but at the same time, I was like, I know I have to get recordings done. So I looked at it, I'm like, I'm DM3. Oh, sorry, I'm DM2. I'm like, I can do that. Like,
I'm taking notes because we're gonna do a revamp for the entire process for episode 301, and I'm like, okay, give DM3 more responsibilities. Let DM1 snooze.
No.
You two are two of the only 5. I think. Who else do we have? We have Terry and Kyle. Nobody else gets to be DM1 anymore. It's just the 5 of us these days.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for a long time.
So honored.
Not mad about it.
All right. Did I hit record? I hit record already.
You did hit record. I do a cold open if you're ready.
I'm not, but go nuts.
Yeah, you know, right?
It's an interesting thing that everybody has a favorite color. Like,
Yeah.
just every person you meet has a color that they lean towards, which is
Yeah.
just like an interesting thing about humans in general. Like,
And like I have different favorite colors for different things. Like
Mhm.
for when I for clothing, my favorite color is
Black?
like night black.
Yeah.
And then but if I'm going to wear a color, it's going to be burgundies and reds. Like that's what I'll
Mhm.
wear. But for the aesthetic in like paintings and drawings and things like that, teal and orange. Those are my two favorite like colors to either use in tandem or just have paintings of. Like it's my favorite.
How
Yeah.
very fucking fey of you.
I
yeah.
know.
I guess like another sign that I didn't see are my favorite colors are like blue, purple, and pink, which is the bi flag color.
Yeah.
Like, should have just another sign. Yeah. Should have known.
Meant to be. Meant to be.
Yeah.
In this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, this panel of dungeon masters will potentially be. Anyways,
May or may not.
May or may not.
I'm sorely disappointed. I just looked it up. Like
Uh-huh.
I typed in D&D yellow Nagas, and no,
No.
it's sad. Although some of these are borderline pornographic with their abs, but like it's weird. It's all UNT that came up, but they're all green and there's sepia toned paper. That doesn't count. All right, now I'm just annoyed.
Yeah, the one in the book is like a blue and red, but the other one is green. Which I
Yeah.
think it is. Oh. All right. The book doesn't really give a written description of their appearance other than serpent, but we do get pictures of each kind. Unlike the Yanti, did you guys hear that big crash? Oh,
No, not at all. What
no.
happened?
Oh, there's just a big like. I think my dog slid across the floor because it's raining outside, and we
Oh.
have hardwood floors in the kitchen. I just heard a big like crash and nails.
Banana bread
right.
is out. Look out.
And again, some of the more common ones that you cut. So further, you know what today is just. I just want to.
Sometimes words are just too much.
Words are hard
you
today.
know.
Okay.